Okay, now let's learn something about basics of recursion. So how does a recursion actually work? So for example, now let us write a code for a Fibonacci sequence, right? So for a Fibonacci sequence, let's assume that I have my main function over here. So let's write int main, and we are just going to give int n is equivalent to 5, right? So for up to 5, I just want to find all the Fibonacci sequence, and here I'm just giving something like C out of fib of n. Let's assume in this way. So what we are doing is we just have a main function. Inside our main function we have our n value as 5, and we are just calling out fib of n method. So let's start writing a code for that fib of n method. So when I start writing fib of n, it will be looking like int fib of int n, right? So int fib of int n, inside which you have to write something like if n is lesser than or equivalent to 1, I have to return n value itself, right? So we have to return n value, else I'll be returning, right? So if this condition is false, then I'll go with else part, and here I'll return fib of n minus 2 plus fib of n minus 1. So why do we write fib of n minus 2 and n minus 1? Because if I need the third element, it is sufficient for me to add the second element as well as the first element, right? So Fibonacci sequence actually looks something like 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 and so on, right? So this is how the Fibonacci sequence actually works. So now let's start writing a code for finding this particular sequence, right? So now my input, that is n value is equivalent to 5. So what happens is, at first let's write the fib of values here, right? So I'll be having something like fib of n minus 2 and fib of n minus 1, right? So this is what it is actually mentioned here. So we have to add this one. So now let's assume that here n is equivalent to 5. So first what happens is, at once I come inside the loop, right? So I'll just do n minus 2 at first, right? So 5 minus 2, it will be 3. So I'll be calling fib of 3, right? So I'll be calling fib of 3 plus fib of, so this part won't be executed now, so let it be n minus 1 itself. So here n value is equivalent to 3, right? So next case, after this again I have to start with the recursion process, right? So see here, fib of n minus 2, it won't go back with the right hand part. So after this it will just start with the same function again. So the control is transferred over here. So only when this part is returned with the value, it will move back with the remaining cases the further cases. So first what I will be doing is, again 3 will be reduced by 2. So fib of 3 minus 2, that is going to be fib of 1. And when I get fib of 1 over here, so let us assume this is going to be n minus 1 itself. So for fib of 1, right? So see here, n value is equal to 1 now. So when I pass 1, it will pass 1 itself. So here at this point I'll be getting the value as 1 itself. So now we very well know n value is equivalent to 1 for this case, right? So n value is equal to, actually we pass the value as 1. So in the previous case, right, so this has been returned with the value 1. So plus some value here, it will return 0, right? So 1 minus 1, it is going to be 0. So fib of 0 is equivalent to 0 itself, right? So now I'll get 1 plus 0 over here, so that will be 1, and this one, that is the final output, will be now passed back with this fib of 3, right? So with fib of 3 I'll be passing 1. So now what happens, this fib of 3 will be added along with this. So this will be 1 plus 3 minus 1, it will be 2. So again I'll be having one more value as 1. So 1 plus 1, you will get 2. So now this 2 will be passed over the previous function. So now over here I'll be having 2, and for this sequence what happens is, when I get n minus 1, that is like 5 minus 1, it is going to be 4. So when I call 4, 4 will actually call 3 as well as 2. So what happens is, here 2 and the final value 3 will be generated, right? So 2 and one more value 3 will be generated, that is like we will be adding this value and this value, so it will give you the number as 3. So when I receive the number as 3 and here it is 2, so overall I'll get the final output as 5. So this is how actually the Fibonacci sequence or the advanced recursion process works. So for example, now let's assume that we have to find the sum of all the numbers, right? So assume we have to find the sum of all the numbers. So for that, let me write a small recursion sequence. Like first I need to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I need to add all the values, right? So how can I write a simple recursion for this, right? So for writing a simple recursion, what I can do is, so int recursion of int n, right? So inside which I'll be having something like sum plus equal to n, right? So but sum plus equal to n will be done only if n not equal to 5, right? So if n not equal to 5, I'll be doing sum plus equal to n, else I'll be just doing something like return sum, and here just give something like recursion of n plus 1, right? So assume by default you are starting with the n value as 1, so from which you are going to call the same recursion method again and again, and at last we are going to return the sum value, right? So here it acts actually like a recursive process. So what happens is, instead of a for loop, we are actually writing this recursion, and actually recursion is not preferable always, right? So it so why doesn't it prefer always? Because of time complexity. So time complexity will be very high whenever we go with the process of recursion. So there are some more advanced techniques that can be used under recursion. For example, so if I want to reduce the time complexity of recursion, then I can go with two processes. So the first process is called as memoization. Right, so first concept is memoization, and second concept is nothing but dynamic programming. Right, so dynamic programming and memoization concept. So I'll tell you the difference between dynamic programming as well as memoization, right? So when it comes with recursion, so I'll arrange recursion, memoization and dynamic programming along with their speed. For example, first you will be having recursion, which is the slowest process, and then I'll be having memoization, and at last you will have dynamic programming, right? So because recursion is the most slowest process, comparing with recursion and memoization is actually faster than recursion, and dynamic programming is actually faster than all the two, right? So this is why we are actually giving preference much for dynamic programming comparing with recursion and memoization. And what is exactly memoization? So memoization is nothing but, if you just see this one, right? So for example, let me just show you one good one here. Like assume that I have fib of 5, right? So if I just want to find fib of 5 value, then what am I supposed to do? So what I'll be doing is I need the value of fib of 3 plus fib of 4, right? So I need fib of 3 and fib of 4 to find fib of 5 value. If I need fib of 3, I need to go with fib of 1 and fib of 2. Same way, if I need to go with 4, I need fib of 2 and fib of 3, right? So same way, if I just go with the fib of 2, I need fib of 0 and 1. Same way here, 0 1, here it will be 2 and 1, and for 2 it will be again 0 and 1. So if you analyze this, see here, so same values are repeated again and again in the loop. Say for example, fib of 2 is repeated thrice in the entire sequence, right? So fib of 2 itself is repeated thrice, and fib of 3 is repeated twice, and at last we are finding the answer. It means that it is not mostly efficient, right? So for some rare questions we can't use memoization or something else, we have to go with recursion, but in this case we have to go with we cannot suitably use recursion, right? So the alternative way is nothing but using memoization. So usage of memoization. So why do I use memoization? Because after doing fib of 3 once, so when it comes back with fib of 3 again, I will be storing it back inside an array. So we are going to store this entire value inside an array. So from this array, I can fetch the value of fib of 3 and fib of 2 if it is done once. So this is how memoization is going to work. And when it comes, still memoization is not the best optimal solution. So it will actually reduce some number of steps, but still if I need it to be O of n, O of 1 complexity, right? So if I want this to be executed in O of 1 complexity, then I can use dynamic programming approach. So how exactly dynamic programming is going to work? So for example, if I want to find till fib of 5, right? So I will be creating an array, and the size of array will be 5 plus 1, so it will be 6, right? So now we are going to have an array block which consists of 6 elements, right? So let's create an array which consists of 6 elements, 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. So let the index values be like this, and now what I am supposed to do is I'll be just taking off I'll be filling the first two boxes alone. So first box it will be 0, second box it will be 1. So this is value, and let's assume this is going to be index, right? So first, if I want to find 2, I want to add 0 plus 1, so it gives 2, right? So 0 plus 1, it will be just 1 itself. For 3, I need to add 1 plus 2, right? So index value 1 and 2 gives me the value of 3. So 1 and 1, it will be 2. And for finding the value for index position 4, I need to add index position 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3, that is 1 plus 2 will be 3. And when I come back with index position 5 and I want to find the fifth Fibonacci sequence, so in that case what I'll be doing is I need to add third value plus fourth value. As a result, third value is nothing but 2 and fourth value is 3, so 2 plus 3 will get 5. So this is how the program logic actually works, and finally we'll receive our final output. So I guess you will be familiar with the logic of Towers of Hanoi. So Towers of Hanoi is nothing but it is a childhood game which we have played in our childhood. Like we'll be having 3 towers and we'll be having 3 discs. For example, here it is 3, 2 and 1. So imagine they are of different sizes. And now the logic is I want to place all the 3 discs into the last rod, that is C, right? So I just want to take all the discs and I want to change it over here. So now what I'll be doing is I'll be taking off the first rod and I'll be placing it at the last part. So first rod will be removed from here and it will be placed at the position C, followed by which I'll take 2 and I'll position it at second rod. So now 1 will be moved back to this one and 3 will be removed from here and I'll be adding 3 over here, right? So now see here, 3 has been given for the last rod, and after this 1 will be moved back to the first rod and I'll take 2 and place it over here, and at last 1 comes from first rod to the last rod. So this is how the problem of Towers of Hanoi works. And same way when it comes with 4 discs or 10 discs, even for 15 to 20 discs, for everything else your program logic is going to work. And how we are supposed to write a code is like we are going to use recursion. And for recursion, first I'll be passing A, C and B, because so from A I have to pass the number 1 to C, right? So from A I have to pass the first value to C. After that from A I have to pass the next value to B, and next time I have to just take from C to B, right? So it should be like C, B, and then it should be A, and so on, right? So this is what the 3 recursion steps which we are going to implement for the program. And let's start writing a code for this. So before taking directly into the code of Towers of Hanoi, we'll start moving from recursion. Like, so first let's learn something about basics of recursion, then we'll go with the memoization concept. Followed by memoization concept, let's go with dynamic programming, right? So, and one more thing, important thing which we have to note about dynamic programming is, so don't just directly start declaring your array like int array of size as n or 5 or whatever it can be, right? So don't do in this way. So if you do in this way, you will be facing an error called as segmentation fault mostly, or else you might also face something like space complexity error, right? So space complexity error will be happening whenever you go with competitive coding. So please do make sure that you are creating this array in a dynamic form by using either malloc or even you can create it as an object. So first let's start writing a code for recursion. So here I have choose the Fibonacci sequence, and we are going to see the same Fibonacci program by using 3 types of approaches. So first let's see with recursion. So hash include bits slash std_c++.h. So followed by which we have to use using namespace std. And now let's start writing the main function first, then we'll come back with the sub function. So int main, and inside this main function I need a value for n, right? So let's declare n and c in n. After this just give c out fib of n, right? So what we are actually doing, we are just created a program, and in this program we have just received an input from the user, and now we are just calling out a method, or you can say it as a function, where we are passing n as a value. And now let's start writing a code for that function. So int fib of int n. And so let's have the same name, and it purely works on recursion. And first case is whenever in the Fibonacci series, if my n value is equal to 1, right? So if it is less than or equal to 1, then I have to return 1 itself, right? So let's do something like if n is less than or equivalent to 1, right? So in that case I have to return the value of n itself. And next is else return. Right, so here comes the exact logic of the program. So if I want to find the third number of a Fibonacci series, I need to add the first and second number, right? So what I'm going to do is fib of n minus 2. So where n minus 2 will give me the first number plus fib of n minus 1. So n minus 1 is going to give me the second number. So as we have discussed earlier, hope you will be familiar about this logic now. So let's try to compile this code once and check how it's going to work. So now the code is compiled perfectly. Let's try to give the input as 5, and see here for the input as 5 we receive the output also as 5. So let's try with 7. So Fibonacci series 7, it should be equivalent to 13. So let's try with that, and yes, we got the final output as 13. So let's try with some more values. For example, let me give the input as 1, for which I am supposed to receive the output as 1 itself, and we are receiving 1, right? So this is how this program actually works, and we are receiving our final output, right? So this is about the approach by using a recursion process, but actually it is a slower one. So for example, if you just see this, it takes a lot of time to compile and show me the console screen, right? So it means that recursion actually takes a lot of time to compile. And now let's try to minimize the time complexity of the program, for which we are going to use the same program, but the concept which we are going to follow here is nothing but using memoization technique. So let's start the program here. So in this place we are going to use memoization, where memoization is nothing but we are just going to use an array for the storing of each and every values whenever it is getting executed. So first, as usual, let's start with the main function. So int main, and inside main I'm just going to give int n and c in n, after which I'm going to give something like c out fib of n, right? So for all the programs it is going to be almost the same one in terms of main function. Even in the previous program where we have used recursion, main function is almost the same, right? So even in next program also main function will be the same one. So now let's start writing a code for fib, right? So int fib of int n, and again here also it is not, we are going to use the recursion process, but still we are going to use some more different forms here, right? So memoization, we know we are going to use an array. So let's declare an array at first. So int array of n plus 1. So why do we give n plus 1? Because I am expecting the output will go one step beyond that, so we are giving n plus 1. And now let's start with the for loop. So for int I equivalent to 0, I less than or equal to n, right? So I less than or equal to n, I plus plus. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the entire array to be minus 1, right? So we are just filling the entire array as minus 1, because every time I add two values, right, so the array values will be modified. And here I'm just going to give something like return memoize of array comma n, right? So why do we call memoize method? So because I just want to find the memoization technique. So with the help of memoization, I just want to find the final value for a particular array index. So now let's try to go back with the memoization method. So int memoize of int array comma int n. So inside which let's just fill the logic. So if array of n not equal to minus 1, right? So whenever this value is not equal to minus 1, I have to return array of n. So why do we return array of n? Because it will hold the previous value always, right? So it is going to hold the previous value. So I will be returning array of n entirely, or the last value which I am supposed to receive. And same way, if n is less than or equivalent to 1, so if n is less than or equal to 1, in that case I have to return the n value itself. So it is similar to something like it is passing the n value over here, right? So the same function or same method we have written over here. And next is array of n, right? So if after doing these two particular process, right, so if these two conditions are false, it means that I have to execute the last line, that is nothing but array of n will be equivalent to memoization of array comma n minus 2, and this side we are going to give memoization of array comma en minus 1. Okay. So the same functionality we have given here, but only changes we have actually used an array. Right? So we have created an array and we have used the same array, and this will be called only once. Right? So do remember here. So your program starts from the main function. After that, from line number 26, the control will be passed to line number 13, and from 13 we have just declared an array, and we are just we are going to return this particular method. Right? So we are just calling this method, and now only this method will be getting executed only when it returns a of n. So only when it returns the final value, it will go back here, and this is going to return the final output to the line number 26. Right? So up to this everything is same like recursion itself, but only difference is in recursion we have just the return of fib of n minus 2 and n minus 1, and it happens recursively. But here what happens is it will reduce at least few steps from the recursion process. So let's try with the input. So there is a small mistake over here, I guess, like yes, so I have given mem, right? So it should be memoize. So I have given the name as memoize. So let me just compile this now. Yes, there is no such errors. And let me give the input as 7, it should be 13, and at once we got the final output. So now, in order to reduce still with the time complexity and make it more efficient, we have to opt out memoization technique, dynamic programming. Right? So memoization is still an optimized one, but not the optimized solution. So now let's start with the dynamic programming approach, where we can say it is mostly an efficient one. So when can I prefer dynamic programming? So like if we have a large set of array, right? So in that case I can prefer dynamic programming. So int main, and as usual we have to write int n, c in n, and next is going to be c out fib of n. That's it. So main function is almost same one. Now let's start with that fib method. So int fib of int n, and here inside this the logic should be like I'm going to create an array. Right? So either you can go with dynamic approach to create an array, or you can even create a static array. It depends on the user. Right? So int array of n plus 1, and next is like array of 0 will be always equivalent to 0, right? So it will be 0, and array of 1 is supposed to be 1, and next is for int I equivalent to 2, right? So why do I start with 2? Because that is going to be my second element in my array, or even you can say it like it is going to be the second element from your Fibonacci sequence. So let's give something like I less than or equivalent to n I plus plus. So here array of I will be equivalent to array of I minus 1 plus array of I minus 2. So here this particular sequence happens at a time complexity of O of 1 directly, right? So it actually happens at the time complexity of O of 1 because array of I minus 1 as well as I minus 2 can be fetched back at a single cast itself. So that is why this program is more efficient comparing with all the other programs, and at last we have to just return array of n. So that's all about the entire program, and here the time complexity will also be very less, right? So now let's try compiling this once, and for 7 my input is supposed to be 13, right? So that's all about the approaches for doing a problem by using recursion, memoization and dynamic programming, right? So now we have done with these basics, and now let's move with one new program, that is Towers of Hanoi, right? So for Towers of Hanoi we have to remember a lot, right? So I'll just write few formulas here. So only thing which we can do here is you can either remember those formulas, right? So hash include bits slash std++ So same way using namespace std, and let me give the main function. So int main, and here I'm just going to give the input statically, like int n is equivalent to 4, and next is like Tower of Hanoi. So I am giving TOH of n comma, and I need exactly 3 particular rods, right? So we'll be having 3 rods, right? So I have mentioned all those 3 rods, and let's do something here. Okay, so I need the rods like A, and then I need C, and then B. So why don't we pass A, B and C? Because I'll be taking a particular value from A, then I'll be passing it to B, and then I'll be passing it to C, and then I'll be passing it with B, right? So it actually takes place in an inverse order. So as of now, just understand why I am writing everything, right? So followed by this, I need a TOH method, right? So void TOH of int n comma. So A is actually a character. So char from rod comma char to rod comma char auxiliary rod. So these are all the 3 names which we have given for the programs. Like I'll be having the first rod, that will be always A, where you will be holding all the values, and 2 rod is the case where you are going to push all the values, and auxiliary rod is going to act as an in-between rod where I'm going to push all my value as an intermediate level, right? So now let's start writing the code from this, and after this I'm supposed to write something like if n is equal to 1, right? So if n is equal to 1, in that case I just need to print something over here. So like cout, so move disk 1 from rod, right? So from rod to where should I move this? To rod. So for example, when I execute this first, what will happen is from A I have to move the disk 1 and I have to place it over the next one, right? So this will happen every time, and I'll be just taking out the value from the disk from the rod A, and I'll be pushing it into the next rod. So after this I just need to give return, and followed by which let's write one more time with the same. So TOH, so we are going to use recursion. So n minus 1 comma from rod comma arch rod comma 2 rod, right? So now we have just called the recursion, and only change which we have made is we have just reduced 1 from the total value, and the auxiliary rod as well as 2 rod is getting changed here. So in this place 2 rod will be holding C and auxiliary rod will be holding B, but now we are passing A, B and C, right? So followed by which I'm going to write a printing statement. For example, cout. So you manually try to work by yourself so that you will understand how the code entirely works. So move disk, and here we have to give something like n, and from rod, and here it should be from rod, and at last it should be 2 rod, right? So why did I give n? Because every time the n value is equivalent to 1, I know that I'm going to move the disk 1. But if it is in different case, we are just going to take out the first value. We are going to take out some alternative numbers, and we are just going to give we are going to use the n value directly, right? So it can be either 2, 3, even it can be 10 also, right? So we can't guess it as of now. So from rod, 2 rod, and at last just give it as 2 rod. So that's all with the second case which we have written, and still we are left out with one more line to complete the entire program. And here again just use a recursion method. So hope it is somewhat similar to the question which we have seen already. Like I have made a question like finding all the permutation of a string. So if you can clearly understand that question, then following up with this question is not such a big deal for you, right? So please do go through that question, and I'll make sure that I have attached that link in the description box. So here again we'll pass n minus 1 comma, and this time it should be auxiliary rod, right? So once I have put everything into the auxiliary rod, I have to move it back, right? So there was a spelling mistake over here, and arch rod, and it is about 2 rod, and at last it should be from rod, right? So now let's try to compile this code, and here the n value is equivalent to 4. So let's compile this. and successfully we got our output, right? But there is one small problem, like I forgot to give endl over here. Okay, now let's try to compile this. Yes, so we got our final output in a proper case. So from disk 1, so move disk 1 from rod A to rod B, right? So this is what the first output is, and move disk 2 from rod A to C, then move disk 1 from B to C. So now see here, in C already I have 2, so over 2 I'll be having the number 1 as of now. So then move disk 3 from A to B, right? So B will be empty, so we are moving 3 over there. And next so 1 from rod C to A, right? So 1 will be moved there, then again I'll be moving 2 over 3. After placing 2 over 3, again I'll be placing 1 over 2, right? So next 4 will be moved from A to C, right? So 4 will be moved to C. After that 1 will be moved to C, then 2 will be moved to A, and 1 will be moved to A again, then 3 will be moved to C. Now 4 upon 4 will be having the number 3, and now I have to push 1 from 1 to B, and after pushing 1 to B I'll be pushing 2 directly to C, so that I'll have 4, 3 and 2 in the last rod, followed by which I'll be pushing 1 from rod B to C, right? So now what happens is, in the last rod C I'll be having all the elements arranged in a proper order, like 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let's try in a simple way just by changing the input as 3. So now let's compile this code and check what output we are going to receive. And see here, first I am taking out rod 1 and putting it at C, and 2 is removed and it is given at B. Now 1 is given to B itself. So in B we have 2 rods now, right? So we have 2, and over 2 I have 1. So disk 3 is moved from A to C, right? So from A we are moving disk 3 to C. After that 1 is moved from B to A, and 2 from B to C, and at last disk 1 is moved from A to C. So now you will have 3, 2 and 1. So this is how this program actually works. So hope you will be clear about the logic of all the programs which I have taught you now. And that's all guys. So now let's move with the next implementations. So guys, now let's discuss about binary search as well as merge search. So first let me just go with binary search. So binary search is the most good algorithm where always the time complexity will be ranging as log n to search for a particular element and to find whether it is present in the given array or not. So for example, now let's assume that I have my array, right? So let's assume we have an array and it's in this format, like for example, let our array be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60, right? So and do remember, it should be necessarily in a sorted order, right? So if it is in sorted form, it will be so easy for us to analyze the final output. Else we have to just sort it out first, then we can proceed with trying to find the searching value, right? So now assume that I have 6 elements over here. So what will happen is, I'll be fixing this 10 as my left value and this 60 as my right value, right? So we are going to fix 2 elements. So one will be L and another one element will be R. So L plus R. So for example, this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So 0 plus 4, it is going to give us the final value as equivalent to 5, right? So 0 plus 5, it is going to be 5 divided by 2, right? So every time to find the mid value, right? So to find the mid value, we are going to write the formula as L plus R minus L divided by 2, right? So L plus R minus L divided by 2, so that it will finally give you the final value. So now let's assume in this way, like my L value is equivalent to 0 plus R value is going to be 5 minus L. So again it is 5 divided by 2, which gives me something like 2.5, but since it is an integer, we'll consider only 2. It means that now in this part I'll consider the element 30 to be my middle element, right? So 30 is now considered as the element M, right? So now let's move in a different way, like assume that now we are going to find the next element. For example, let's assume we have a key element that should be found here is equivalent to 20, right? So now the key element which I need to find is equivalent to 20. So first what I'll be checking is if that array of M, right? So array of M where M represents the element 30, right? So is equal to the key element. So where key value is 20, right? So what is there in array of m? So in array of m, actually we have the element 30, so it is not equal to key, right? So since it is not equal to key, I'll be moving with the next step. So if it is true, then I'll return the value of m, right? So if it is true, then we have to return this final value as m, else, right? So if this is false, it means that I have to proceed with the next step, and in next step what I'll be giving is array of m, right? So array of m is less than the key value, right? So I'll check whether array of m is less than the key. So here what is there in array of m? It is actually equal to 30, and it is not actually less than key, but it is greater than key. So what should I do now? So if it is less than the key element, then I need to change the L value, right? So if it is less than that, I need to change L value, else I need to change the R value to m minus 1, right? So this is what I want to do. So now here array of m is not actually less than key, it is actually greater than key. So we have to do a changes with R equal to m minus 1. So now R is pointing to 5. So R value will be m minus 1. So what is m? It is actually pointing to the element 2. Right? So 2 minus 1. So it will point out to this part. Right? So it will point out here. And next step is I'll be coming back to the same loop again. And this time what I'll be doing is I'll just check with, I'll try to find the middle value now. Right? So now we are just going to find the middle value. So here L as well as middle will be same now, because we know that for finding the middle value it should be L plus R minus L, right? So now what happens is this middle value, right? So according to this formula, this middle value is now pointed to the same number, that is 10, right? So now the middle value as well as my left value is same, and now I'll check with this condition. So if middle value equal to key, it is not actually same, so this is going to be my right value now. So it is not same, right? So I'll go with else part and I'll check with this condition. So again array of m is not actually lesser than key. Yes, it is actually lesser than key, right? So now the middle value is 10, but the key element is equal to 20, right? So key value is equal to 20, so condition is true. So I will be adding m plus 1 to L, right? So now left will be pointing one step after this. So now R is also pointing to this, and L is also pointing to the same variable, right? So see here in this video, in this particular input, 20 is now pointed by both R as well as L. So what will be the middle element? Obviously middle element is also equivalent to 20. So now I'll just come here to check for the value. So array of m, where the middle element is equal to key, that is 20. So I'll return the value m, right? So where m is nothing but it will return the index position as 1. But in case if I try to find the value as 25, right? So let's assume that your key value is going to be 25, and again, so anyhow this is going to be in this place only. So now I'll just go on checking with this condition. So array of m less than key, so is the condition true? Actually no, right? So key value is actually greater than array of m, so condition is true. So what I'll be doing is L value will be modified as m plus 1. So again from this part L will be moving one step beyond this, right? So if L is moving one step beyond this, L value will be actually greater than the R value. So in this case you have to break your entire loop, right? So we have to break the entire program, so that now the final output will be the exact value which we need to find out from this, right? So this is how our binary search algorithm actually works. So now let's discuss about merge sort algorithm. So merge sort algorithm is the most efficient sorting algorithm ever to be used, because the time complexity that is recorded for this merge sort algorithm is almost equivalent to n log n for all the cases, right? So for best case, worst case as well as average case analysis, so the time complexity always ranged as n log n for all the conditions, right? So that is what the main thing which we need to know about a merge sort. So now let's discuss about how the merge sort algorithm is going to work actually, right? So first thing is, let's assume that we have an input in this form, like let it be 10. Just a second guys, I just try to focus off. Okay, so let's assume that we have our input as 10, 8, then 6, 7, 5, 1, 4 and let's assume this is 3. So let's assume in this way. So what happened is, first it will be splitted into two teams. So if I count the total number of variables present here, so we actually have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. So we have 8 elements. So what will happen is, it will be splitted into two teams, right? So these 8 elements are now splitted into two teams. So the second condition what it will take is like, I'll consider the elements 10 8 6 and 7. So here in this left side team, I actually have two types of I can split them into two teams again. So now this will be again splitted into two teams, as 10 and 8 as one team, 6 comma 7 into another team. So when I receive only two elements here, these elements will be internally swapped by themselves, and these four values will be now merged into a proper one. Like it will be 8 10 over here, and here it will be 6 and 7. So when I come with the final step, it will look something like 6 7 8, and at last it will be 10, right? So this is how the left side team actually works accordingly. Same way if I go with right side, so this will be splitted into two teams as 5 1 4 3. So now out of 5 1, it will be modified as 1 and 5, and it will be modified as 3 comma 4, right? So it will be 1 5, here it will be 3 and then 4. So when I merge these two values, these two teams, it will be 1 3 4 and 5. So now what is the remaining process left out here? I want to just merge the second team, that is the first team as well as the second team together. So if I just try to rearrange this again, so it will look something like 1 3 4 5, then 6 7 8 and 9. So this is how the entire algorithm logic works. So this is what the concept of merge sort is. So always the time complexity will range from n log n, and you will have any number of inputs. So always it will be splitted accordingly into teams. So after splitting them into teams, you will be taking so further the teams will be divided into some sub teams. So after that you will just arrange them into ascending order, and at last you will merge them together, and each and every team will be merged. So also whenever they are getting merged, they will be arranged in some ascending order. After that the final output is going to be in the sorted form. So see here, our input is in this way, where it is in a scrambled version, but when it is getting merged, so we have a proper arranged values, right? So this is what the procedure for a merge sort algorithm is. Now let's quickly move with implementation through compiler for both merge sort as well as binary search. So now let's see the implementation of binary search and divide and conquer. For divide and conquer, for the sorting algorithm, I have preferred merge sort here. And let's see the implementation of binary search at first. So as usual, we are just starting with the main function, and here we have integer n, and for n represents the size of your array, right? So here n represents size of our array, followed by which I have just declared an array, and in these three lines we have actually collected the input from the user for our array, followed by which I am just collecting a key value from the user. So key value is nothing but the value which I want to check whether it is present in our given array or not. So followed by which I have int result, a variable, and in this variable I am just trying to find out, I am just trying to call a new function called as binary search, and here I am passing the entire array object, then starting index value that should be 0 always, and ending index value that will be n-1, as well as our key value, right? So all these four values are passed as a parameter, and after this I will be just checking whether result value is equal to -1, right? So if the result value is equal to -1, it means that the element is not present in the array. So if the result value is something else apart from -1, it means that I'll be displaying element is present at the index value as well as the result variable, right? So this is how your program logic is going to work, and I'll repeat one more time for main method alone. So integer n, it represents size of the array. Then in these three lines we are collecting the input for our array, followed by which we are collecting the key element, and we are calling that binary search method, and after calling this method we are actually printing the final output. So if it is present, it will show the index value, else it will say it is not present in our array. So now let's see what is exactly given in our binary search method. So just here, instead of using recursion, I have actually preferred a loop so that it works in a so the time complexity can be reduced, and hope you will be already aware about time complexity for a binary search. So always it will be equivalent to O of log n, right? So it will be always equivalent to O of log n, and that is what the time complexity for a binary search. So that's the main reason why we are giving preference to binary search instead of other search algorithms. So now let me explain you with this binary search and tell you what happens exactly inside this. So first I'll be considering my leftmost value, that is L will be 0 and R will be the last value, right? So that is the last so in your array the final element, right? So 0 and the last value, and in M what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the pivot element, right? So I'm going to find the pivot element, and pivot element will be found just by adding L and R and dividing by 2. Right, so this is how you will be getting the middle element for your entire array. So after that I'll just check with that value. So if array element of that pivot one, that middle element, is equal to the key value which I am about to find, then I'll be returning the M value itself, right? So I'll return M value and I'll stop. And in this case, if it works for the very first case itself, my time complexity is going to be O of 1, right? So now if this condition is false, right? So if it is not same, it means that I'll just go and check with that input value. So if it is less than key, it means that I have to change my rightmost value, right? So if it is true, then I'll be changing my left value, else if this is false, then I'll go on changing the rightmost value, right? So this is what we are actually doing this, and this value will be happening till we reach something like L value is less than or equivalent to R, right? So if L and R is pointing to the same value, right? So even at that case, there might be a chances where the middle element is going to be our key value, right? So if that condition also fails again, it means that your L value will be modified somehow, or else your R value will be modified, where any case I can say L will be greater than R. At that case I'll just entirely break this loop, and if this loop is getting break, it means that the element is not found in our entire array, and at that case I'll be returning the final output as -1. So this is all about your binary search. So let's just try to compile this, and let me give the n value as equivalent to 10, and let me give inputs like 1 2 3 4 5 6. So we have 10 elements over here, and now I want to search for the element 4 and see it shows the element is present at index value 3, right? So at the third index value I have the element 4. So now let's recompile this and check with the value which is not there in our array. So let me give the size as 5. So I'm going to give the inputs as 1 2 3 4 and 5, and I'm going to check for the number 9 and see it shows element is not present in the array, right? So it means that the algorithm is actually faster to execute, and it gives our final output, right? So now binary search is done. Let's quickly move with merge sort. So merge sort, you will feel quite a bit difficult to understand the logic. So what I can suggest you is, like, first just hear what I am saying for this algorithm and try practicing by yourself. So take a paper and take a pen and try to track it by yourself, so that you will clearly understand how the algorithm actually works. So same way we'll be starting with main function, and in main function we are just declaring the array, right? So receiving the input for our array, and after this we are just calling off this merge sort method, and after calling this merge sort method we are just printing all the values of our array. So that's what we are doing here. And now let's see what happens exactly in that merge sort method. And here we are passing that array element, the number 0, and then n minus 1, that refers the final index value for our array. So now if I come back to this merge sort method, right? So actually I have given two methods here. So one is merge sort, and also we have one more method called as merge, right? So where in merge sort what happens is, I'll check whether my left value is lesser than right value or not. So if this condition is true, then what I'm doing is I'm going to split them into two teams, right? So I'll be splitting them into two teams, and I'll be calling this same method one more time. So here I'll be passing off array, then left value as well as the middle value, and again middle value plus 1 and till r, right? So here, since I'm calling this this recursion twice, what happens is it will split them into two teams. So first the entire leftmost values will be gathered together, and then the rightmost value, so it will be splitted off into several teams, followed by which you are calling a merge method. And in this merge method I'm just passing off the array, then we are passing the left element, middle element, and then the right element. So let's see what happens in this merge method. So do remember these two lines a lot, right? So for most of the algorithms, always you will have a recursion based format, so every time it will be in this order, right? So let's just try to find out what exactly it happens in this merge method. So this is the part where you will be facing a lot of difficulty. So preferably take a pen, take a paper, so manually work out by yourself so that you will get a crisp idea about how this algorithm, that is merge sort algorithm, works. And for all average case, best case as well as worst case, so the time complexity for the merge sort is equivalent to big O of n log n. So that is the main reason why everyone are giving preference to merge sort rather than using a quicksort algorithm. So quicksort actually fails when you have a large set of array. So in that case, I can't directly use my quicksort algorithm where the time limit can also exceed nearly to n square. So I don't want n square to be there. But when it comes with merge sort algorithm, always they have proved that the time complexity is going to be O of n log n for all the three cases. So no matter it is worst case or best case or average case, for every case my final time complexity is equivalent to O of n log n. So that's the main reason why we are giving preference to merge sort algorithm. And here actually what happens is like we are just receiving the entire input from that method, right? So from here we are just passing off all the values, and after that I'll be just taking that into two teams, and based on those two teams we are just rearranging that values. Like you can also say like you are just sorting off the values present inside a same team, and here you will have two arrays. Like you will have a left array as well as a right array, and you are just receiving all the inputs from the user for left array as well as right array. So not from the user, from that array you are fetching the values. After that you are actually trying to sort the entire array. So here it takes with left array and here it takes with the remaining part, right? So you are just trying to sort out the entire array. So preferably please do take a pen, take a paper, and try writing all the loops, all the values, and manually work out by yourself so that you will get an idea how this algorithm actually works. And please do remember this entire algorithm, so it will be helpful for you. And also I have given a best way for sorting method, and the link for the video is attached in the description box, so please do go through that video also. So if you are given with the constraint that you have to use only merge sort, or else you have to use any of the sorting algorithm of your own, in that case definitely you have to write an algorithm. Else if you want to just sort the values where no such constraints are mentioned, then the link in the description box is going to help you find it. So even if you are a C++ user or else you are a Java user, the link will entirely help you how to do that in just one line of code, right? So not to remember these many lines of code. So with just one single line you can entirely sort out your array and display the final output.